Hi, welcome to Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid, Bob Brack. I'm over Box, and today I'm looking at my top 10 Clint Eastwood films. So Clint's an actor-director. I suppose you'd be going back to Orson Welles, first guy I can think of doing that in Hollywood with Citizen Kane, Touch of Evil, Lady from Shanghai, The Stranger, being amongst his classics. Would have maybe warranted a top 10 Wells, but once he gets past Touch of Evil, it's quite hard to find his films, so I kind of neglected to do that. Robert Redford would be another example as well. But when Clint started out, there wasn't many who were doing that or had done that. He's had a very prolific career as a director. Some of the films that haven't made the cut he's directed, there's Changeling and Sully, which are more recent ones, which I think are pretty good. I think Sully was good. Again, celebrating the all-American hero and the everyman. The blue-collar American, something he does very well. Pale Rider, he's kind of 85 comeback western. Letters from Iwo Jima and Flags of Our Fathers, which are good war films. The Mule, his most recent film, having like $100 million grossing film at the age of something like 88, 89. Remarkable. Gran Torino, as well, a kind of similar vein. American Sniper, quite a complicated film, like morally, but again, interesting, exploring sort of that West American hero. Perfect World, kind of the film after Unforgiven, gets overlooked a bit, but quite a nice little film there. Bird as well, his biopic of Charlie Parker. White Under Black Heart as well. He's kind of strange John Huston. Well, he's playing a director like John Huston. Okay, so let's go for the top 10. So actually the first film I'm going to pick is, probably isn't critically acclaimed. I just always really like it. And it's Heartbreak Ridge. So this is a pretty good hit for him in the mid-80s. Things were tailing off a little bit, but he was still doing well. The dialogue in this is hilarious. Clint Mays plays ridiculously macho gunnery sergeant Thomas Highway. And at the end, like he's getting a ragtag of recruits together to get them ready for battle. It's that classic scenario, and it's basically a kind of sort of a Let's Win Vietnam Again film. So basically, America's left Vietnam in '75. In the '80s, there's a cycle of films. Some go back into Vietnam, but others kind of have recruits doing some other kind of military activity, warlike thing. At the end of it, Top Gun would be an example, and it's to show America's military might and that they've still got it. What they're quite going to do in the wake of Iraq and Afghanistan, I don't know. I don't know if there's a way they can whitewash that one. But anyway, it's good fun, this film. Great dialogue. Nice performance by Marsha Mason as well. His typical collaborators, Joel Cox and Jack and Green. Music by Lenny Niehaus. These are the guys he was using a lot in this period, his collaborators. So my number 9 choice is, again, it's another one which isn't a critic's fave, but I've just always loved it since I was a kid. And it's his attempt at an espionage film, other than Firefox, which really, apart from a couple of scenes, has got terrible effects, but it's the Eiger Sanction. So this is kind of Clint kind of doing sort of James Bond. He plays Jonathan Hemlock. He's a lecturer, but he's actually been an agent, in the past with some dodgy agency, and he's hired by a guy called the Dragon, kind of blackmailed into going out on a mission again. So the Dragon's played by an actor called Fair David, and the Dragon has, in true Bond villain fashion, he has an ailment and he's albino, so he sits in darkness in red light. So it's good. Actually, Jack Cassidy's in this. Not an actor you see that much of, but he's dead now. But he's actually the dad and father of David Cassidy. George Kennedy's good. The climbing sequence is really good on the north face of the Eiger. The north face of the Eiger is a notoriously difficult climb. You use professional climbers, and Clint managed to get himself in the shot there. And it uses the famous window in the railway through the inside of the mountain where climbers could be rescued from. So it's quite long, this. 129 minutes of Clint at this point. He's kind of breaking away from his Don Siegel tutelage, and his films start to get a bit long, and you'll find that as he moves through, his films take a more leisurely pace. But I've always liked this. It's always one, whenever I sit down to watch it, I enjoy it. John Williams does the score. This is the same year as Jaws kind of announces, and then he kind of becomes the Spielberg Luke the Superman guy. Awesome, however that is. My 8th choice, quite unusual. It's a recent one, but I think when I thought about it, I thought, I want to pick this one out and encourage viewing is Richard Jewell. So this kind of came and went a bit at the box office, but got a little bit of Oscar recognition for Kathy Bates. But really interesting story. It's about the guy who found the bomb at the Atlanta Olympics, got people out of there, was a hero, and then the media turned on him. He became a suspect. And this guy didn't fit the model of the American hero. He was overweight. He was wanted a career in law enforcement. He was kind of doing security. And I think he lived with his mum. He may have had he might have been on the autistic spectrum, a few learning difficulties. It's that thing where his face just didn't fit, and he gets, the media tries to pin it on him. It must be him, and the FBI's trying to find evidence that it's him. And it wasn't him. He was a hero. And Clint Eastwood was interested in characters like this. These are people, middle Americans, people from the Midwest. And you don't typically see depictions of these characters in mainstream American cinema. If you watch a Marvel film, or that's about all there is out there now, Fast and Furious and franchises, and the typical values Hollywood puts across. Eastwood's doing something different. In some ways, I suppose he's appealing more, not that his politics of, say, Trump or anything like that, but he's making films that maybe appeal more to the kind of typical American values, a bit more right wing. So a lot of people don't like that, but my argument is there's people like that in America, and their needs need to be served as well. And I think Clint Eastwood does that in films like American Sniper and Richard Jewell, The Mule, Gran Torino, and he's got the film coming up, probably might be out by the time you see this, Cry Macho. So he's kind of exploring different things. But this is it's a good film. Sam Rockwell, Kathy Bates, John Hamm, Olivia Wilde, all give really good performances. Paul Walthouse is a standout in this. You'll recognise him from I, Tonya and Cobra Kai. So, good film. Check it out. So my number 7 choice is $1 Million Baby. So this film kind of came out of nowhere a bit for Clint. I remember, it was getting near Oscar time, and then about a month before, I said, Clint Eastwood's got a new film out, and then he just sweeps at the Oscars, won 4. So he got only his second acting nomination for this, and he gives a great performance. So things are cool to his reading off a cue card, though. Hilary Swank won the Oscar, very good. And Morgan Freeman as well. I think there's a criticism of this film, and I've seen kind of female film critics criticise, and I think they've got a valid point, is it's more about Eastwood. It should be about Eastwood's character, apologies. It should be about the Hilary Swank character, her struggle, her journey. But it's not. It's about Eastwood's guilt and Catholicism. But do like it. It's not an easy watch. And then my number 6 choice is the film that came the year before that, Mystic River. So again, there was Oscar nominations for this. Really good adaptation of the Dennis Lehane novel. Again, Joel Cox. He starts collaborating with a cinematographer around this time called Tom Stern, and he starts to do all his films. Clint's also doing the music on this, which he quite often does. Again, more leisurely running time, 138 minutes. But this was a pretty big hit. $30 million budget, $156 million gross, and it won the Best Actor Oscar for Sean Penn. That's another good film. Strong acting. Laura Linney, Marcia Gay Harden gives strong performances. Clint's very good with actors. He does rehearsal and he just shoots a couple of takes. He casts well. He's got a leisurely style. He does relaxed sets, and he brings his films in a good medium budget. So number 5 choice, I'm quite surprised at me going for something so sentimental, but I think this film oozes class, and it's The Bridges of Madison County. Only really got, I think, 1 nomination at the Oscars for Meryl Streep for Best Actress. She's very good, but she's a bit mannered. But I think this, for me, is Eastwood's best performance as an actor. He plays a character against type. I love the gentleness. I love the way he's photographing these bridges. It's really poignant. It's a kind of like, I suppose you call it a May-September romance, but it's over 4 days. And it ends so poignant. He's driving off in the rain, and she can see, and he puts I think it's like a cross, and hangs it up. I think she's giving it to him, maybe, or I can't remember what that is. But leisurely, but works really good. Beautiful music by Lenny Niehaus. and it was a big hit. This, I mean, it was based on a popular book, $182 million on a $22 million budget. You know, Clint at this point was 64, 65 years old, and he's knocking out box office hits. So my number 4 choice is High Plains Drifter. So this is his second film as a director. Just going to find it here. Really atmospheric western. So Pale Rider later on kind of uses the same sort of ghostly mysticism, I suppose, but it's almost like an avenging angel, really, this. He rides out of the desert. Great cinematography with lots of kind of mirage effects by Bruce Surtees. Good music by a guy called Dee Barton as well. And Clint decides to help the town of its ne'er-do-wells, but then he basically abandons them. And the inference is that he's the kind of avenging spectre, the avenging angel of the previous marshal who was deserted by the town. So it's kind of like High Noon. Imagine High Noon when the marshal's deserted and gets wasted, and then comes back and puts the town through hell. Really good, and pretty lean, 105 minutes long. Great movie. So my number 3 choice is his first film as a director, and it's Playing Misty for Me. Again, this is 102 minutes long. Very influential film, this. I mean, this basically creates a kind of stalker psycho plot. It's used by Fatal Attraction. What's the Julia Roberts one? I can't remember, with Patrick Bergen, where he's a real psycho. You know, you'll find things like this on Netflix. It's really good. Great opening shot on this, filmed in around Monterey and Carmel. Beautiful part of the world. Lovely helicopter shot. He plays a DJ, has a one-night stand with Jessica Walter, the late Jessica Walter, is excellent in this. And then he she gets a bit intense, and he retracts her advances. But it's kind of critical, really. He's kind of used her. He kind of thinks he can sort of spread it about, and then he gets his kind of comeuppance. Good performance by Donna Mills as well, better known for Knots Landing. Bruce Surtees does the cinematography here in the start, and Dee Barton again does the film and the score. So he's starting to make creative partnerships, but it only costs less than $1 million to make and gross over 10 million. Like, excellent film. There's a good cameo by Don Siegel as well in this. So yeah, I love it. Right, it was one of those films, took a while for me to see. I saw it in the late 80s, and ever since then it's always been one of my absolute favourite films by him as a director. So my number 2 choice is his Oscar-winning masterpiece, Unforgiven. So this was 92. Clint was coming off a majorly lean period here. I'll just have a look. Sudden Impact was a hit, Tightrope. City Heat, not so good. Pale Rider did pretty well, $40 million gross. So it was over $100 million that'd be now. But then Heartbreak Ridge did well, but he did a lame Fifth Dirty Harry film, The Deadpool, which didn't do that well at the time, or was diminishing returns, and had a real flop with a film called Pink Cadillac. This is one of the few Clint Eastwood films I've just never got around to seeing. I don't know why. It's very rarely on, and I've just never got around to it. And then he had a flop with Matt Whitehunter, Black Heart. There's actually quite an interesting film, but cost a bit. And then he did The Rookie. Now, this should have been, him getting in on the Lethal Weapon act, but it just didn't work. Again, it wasn't a hit, so he was wasn't in the best shape. He'd been a consistent grossing star, but then he did Unforgiven. It grossed $160 million worldwide on a $14 million budget. Jack and Green, Joe Cox editing, Jack and Green's cinematography, Lenny Nias doing a lovely score, and Clint Eastwood just knocking it out of the park, making like the first masterpiece western in years. Now people are still making westerns, but Hostiles was excellent, actually, recent western. Great acting by Hackman, Gene Hackman winning the Best Supporting Actor, Clint getting his first Oscar nomination as Best Actor, deservedly so. Morgan Freeman, superb, and Richard Harris, excellent. Just really good. I still remember the climax of this film at cinema. There was just something stunning about it. It's just really, really intense. And then Clint, the shootout kind of goes wrong. I love it. And then he just rides off in the rain. Absolutely brilliant, and a brilliant exploration of mythology and violence. Definitely, one of Clint's great films, winning the Best Director Oscar, one of his 4 nominations. Okay, so let's go back through the top 10. As Clint Eastwood as a director, 10 Heartbreak Ridge, 9 The Eiger Sanction, 8 Richard Jewell, $7 Million Baby, 6 Mystic River, 5 The Bridges of Madison County, 4 High Plains Drifter, 3 Play Misty for Me, and 2 Unforgiven. So my number one choice, I think a few years ago, 10 years ago, it would have been Unforgiven, but I think Clint got it right with this film, and it's Outlaw Josie Wells. This is his first truly great film, and it's the last great Western of his time. So Hollywood's consistently making Westerns. The Western comes of age with Stagecoach in 1939. And all the way through the 1940s, 50s, you're getting great Westerns from John Ford, Howard Hawks of Red River, Rio Bravo, the Anthony Mann Westerns with James Stewart, big scale epics like The Big Country, or from the 40s, what they call it, Lust in the Dust, Jewel in the Sun. Sorry, into the 60s, the television starts to, take away some of the artistic appeal of the Western. But you get guys like Sergio Leone and Sam Peckinpah making brilliant revisionist Westerns with The Wild Bunch, the Dollars Trilogy. And that keeps it alive. And then in 73, Sam Peckinpah makes Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. So there's still, and some interesting Alzana's Raid and things like that. There's still interesting Westerns being made. But this is the absolute masterpiece. Really, it's about redemption. Clint Eastwood, his family gets murdered by, I think it's Confederate soldiers. And a really horrible scene, he buries them, and then he goes off for revenge. He becomes the outlaw Josie Wells. But along the way, he picks up different people on his trip, and he basically kind of picks up a new surrogate family, and that kind of heals him, I suppose. But it's got some great stuff on it. He chews backy throughout, and he spits on a dog, I think, and then he spits on somebody he's killed. There's numerous great scenes. John Vernon's really good. He's back in a lot of Clint Eastwood films. And this did very well. The budget was only $3.7 million, and it grossed $32 million nearly. So a multiply, of about 4 for that, over 100 million at gross now. Great performance by Chief Dan George, a Native American actor. And Clint, showing real kind of foresight, casting, an actor, properly. Sam Bottoms is really good. It's Bill McKinney as well. It's just got a great atmosphere, this, and it was wildly acclaimed at this time, but I think now, it's like, it is Clint's best film as a director. It's one of the all-time great Westerns for me, and would rank high on any all-time Western list, as would Unforgiven. Okay, so that is my Clint Eastwood top 10 films as a director. He's still going. He's got a film coming out soon. It might already be out by the time you see this. The guy's 91, he's 92 in May. Amazing. Cheers. Thanks very much.